Straight games, no filler. Welcome to Status Quo. This is episode 21. We have officially made it over that 20 hump, and we're a real life, regular podcast now. Hey, Mom, I'm a real boy. So, as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Queasy Crayfish.
That's right. And today we're gonna have another great episode with I think some pretty dope topics. And then we're gonna cover some things that I've really been wanting to talk about, some games that I've really been liking to play here as of late. As always, we're gonna do some flake news, talk about a couple of new things. And we're going to talk about this brand new PS1 classic that everybody's ranting and raving about, and that I specifically am not ranting or raving about, because I just want to talk a little bit about nostalgia. You all know me, Marz Vindicator, the ex-collector. I'm living a new life. I'm out of that scene. I'm off those drugs. I've been to rehab. Okay. We're also going to talk about superhero games, because just like you, I've been playing the new Spiderman, and it's dope as hell. We're going to have a new segment. It's going to be called The Great Debate. And that is where Queasy Crayfish and I are going to debate on a topic. So we both know what the topic is, but we don't know what each other's point is. So hopefully we have a great debate for you guys. That topic is going to be the most iconic 6th gen game, as in the game that defines that generation. And if you don't know, the 6th gen is also AKA the 128-bit era, where we had the Dreamcast started off, the PS2, and the GameCube and Xbox came in later. And then finally, as we are recording this broadcast, the Tokyo Game Show is going on, obviously in Tokyo. Actually, it's actually not in Tokyo. I know a lot of you don't know that. Surprise, surprise. I used to live there. It's actually in Chiba Prefecture. But either way, it's very close to Tokyo. And there's a lot of things going on there, a lot of, new games being announced. And so we'll probably cover a lot of that stuff more so in the next episode, where we're going to just talk about Tokyo Game Show. I'll share a little bit about when I went there in the past, Throwback Thursday, since we're recording this on a Thursday. And we're also going to just talk about some things we're excited to see in the Tokyo Game Show as a show. All right. So without further ado, let's get started with this flake news. So, Queasy Crayfish.
Yeah.
Did you know that you can play all of Red Dead Redemption 2 in first person?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I guess that's like the Rockstar thing now. It's like GTA 5. They put that in when they re-released it on the current gen, and I don't know. I don't want to play it like that. I don't want to play that game, period. But I guess if you're stuck in 2006 or whatever, and you only want to play first person shooters, then have at it.
Yeah, I guess that is true. I was thinking like this will get new kids playing, but I think like the two biggest games right now are not first person, PUBG and Fortnite. So that's interesting. All right, so we're gonna cover this game a little bit more later. But did you also know that Spider-Man is apparently, which is a surprise to me, the fastest selling first party PlayStation title? Now, I looked at a couple articles on this. They did not say fastest selling PlayStation title on PS4. They just said it's the fastest first party PlayStation title, period. And it's also, allegedly. And it's also apparently doing better than Spider-Man Homecoming.
It's just better than the movie.
It's definitely better than the movie.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess, Marvel's pretty big. It was like 3.3 million or something like that units, was it? Or yeah, that's, I don't know. Good for them. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone that I know that plays games is playing it, except for me, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna talk about this more later. Queasy, I know you don't like a lot of run-of-the-mill open world games, but it's just something different about this Spider-Man, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that later. Just this very game's existence is big news to me, so I just want to mention Project Judge. Have you heard of Project Judge?
No.
Long story short, it is a detective game set in the Yakuza universe, specifically in the same area in Kamurocho. There's a famous Japanese, I think he's a like musician and an actor who's doing like the motion capture for the main character. And so it plays a bit like Yakuza, where there's like fights and stuff, and it's kind of like that pseudo open world thing, but there's like more detective elements. So like when you run up to people, they'll like run away from you or like create distractions so you can't interview them, interrogate them. I think there may be some fights on the street. I guess you can use a little bit of stealth, things like that. So it's like fully detective focused, but they're doing some things that are cool in it too. Like they're gonna put some other game, but also Virtual Lawn. No, excuse me, not Virtual Lawn. Fighting Vipers is going to be the game within this game, in the arcade. So it's basically Detective Yakuza.
Well, that's cool. That you said it's in the same universe as Yakuza?
Yeah, it's in the exact same like place too, like exact same area.
Okay, so like Kiryu or something could just be like he's just like around.
Yeah, exactly.
Could make a cameo or something. Oh, okay, that's cool. I might check that out. Yeah, I like detectives. Right,
yeah. I always like shared world game universes and stuff. So.
Yo, whatever happened to that game? Whore of the Orient. That was supposed to be. Orient. Yeah, it was supposed to be a detective game. I think it was made by the LA Noire people, and I remember it getting announced like 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh my god!
And I haven't heard a thing about it since then.
Do I remember that?
Whore of the Orient.
Oh, wait. Horror or... Oh, whore.
Yeah, Whore of the Orient.
Oh, good God. Yeah, looks like it got canceled, though.
It got canceled, though. Yeah, it looked... I don't remember. The screenshots look pretty nice. So I like detective stuff. I was down for some detective games.
Well, according to Wikipedia, that developer... Nobody wanted to work with them because they had unethical working practices.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Rockstar said that. And if they're just not the team that I.
Dang, Rockstar doesn't want to work with you.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
As misogynist and sexist as they are.
And they said, the game title was criticized. I don't want to get into all that stuff, but I guess because even horror though, I was like, damn, Horror of the Orient, but hey, check the Wikipedia. They say some stuff on there.
Yeah, it was a strange title. Right. I remember seeing that being like, what?
Man. So, okay. Next, looks like there's a Fortnite Switch bundle on the way.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. Some more dances. We can get some more dance moves.
Right.
Some new ones.
I'm not even gonna lie. I put that in here for the sake of diversifying our content. I don't want to always focus on obscure Japanese games and main games that we play. But I guess my thing about that is like it's just weird to me to have like a bundle that comes with a free game.
One of these days I'm gonna pick that up and I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play Fortnite. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna download it. I'm gonna play it and see what it's all about. But I just can't bring myself. I was looking at it last night on the PlayStation Store. I was like, should I just like download this and just like play it and not tell anyone?
Right.
Just see what it's like. Because I did that with Minecraft. And, Minecraft is not free to play, but I was like, I've seen a lot of people playing this game and it looks fun to me. So like I'll take a chance and try it. And I do like it. I think it's a fun game. I can see why a lot of people are addicted to it. And I hadn't played it, it's not even like it's not even like a the big poppin' game right now, but it's definitely had staying power. And so there's just because it's a mainstream super popular game doesn't mean it can't be good. It's just I don't know, just the Fortnite culture is just like
yeah, no, exactly. I see a lot of like 14-year-old kids wearing Fortnite shirts and things like that. And I guess with me it just kind of feels like I'm not a part of that. But our affiliates Zilla, I believe Zilla, King 50 Cal, and Dre King Dave were all over here. And this was like right when the whole Fortnite went like free to play, and right when they made the Battle Royale mode. Because at first it was just like some other little like game, and then they basically copied PUBG. And they come over and I downloaded on my PlayStation right then, and I played it back then. And it wasn't bad. I'm not really a fan of that type of game.
Did you ever see they had that like boogie down contest where people submitted like new dance moves, for for Fortnite, and it was something to see. PewDiePie did a video on that and showing a bunch of it's like all these like preteen kids dancing in their bedroom quietly because they couldn't put music over it because of copyright, so they're just dancing silently in their bedroom. Oh, jeez. It's just like, man, what is this cult stuff people are getting into here?
Right. Send in videos for Final Fantasy VII win poses. That definitely would not have been a thing back in my day. But yeah, so finally, this last piece of news is that PlayStation Now, the game streaming service that nobody uses, is going to allow you to download games, specifically, I guess, the PS4 ones and the PS2 digital ones, but not the PS3 ones. So what do you think, Queasy? Is that going to make you sign up for PlayStation Now?
I mean, I'll have you know I play all my games through PlayStation Now. No, all of them. Yeah, all of them. No, I tried it. I tried it when it first came out. I had like the free trial or whatever, and then of course I forgot to cancel it, and they charged me 1 or 2 times, I think, but it was trash. Right. So I don't know. A download would probably be the way to go until streaming of games becomes viable, because it just wasn't like, I remember playing like Sly Cooper or something like that, and it was you'd be going along fine, and then all of a sudden it would dip to like 240p and like 0 frames per second, and it was just messed up.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. I had the trial too, and I think I played a Sonic game, and we all know how important speed is for that. So definitely did not work. Definitely would not trust a fighting game with it. But I think the biggest stab to the heart with all this is that, I mean, the PS2 digital games, that's definitely cool. That's definitely dope. But them not allowing us to do the PS3 games, I think sucks, because like that alone would make me do it. I love reasons to put away my old consoles, but they haven't given me one to put away my PS3 yet. So, oh well. All right. So let's get into these topics. So we're talking about PS3, PS2, whatever. Let's talk about the PS1. Okay. Let's talk about this PS1 Classic. Queasy, did you see the PS1 Classic?
The POS 1 Classic? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I love the PlayStation 1. Right. That's the end of my disclaimer. I just think that it's kind of I don't think it's a foolish idea in terms of business. I think Sony recognizes something that they can capitalize on, and they're doing it. So I don't necessarily hate them for that. I guess where it kind of ticks me off is that, though at the same time I have my quirks about nostalgia in general, it's like a lot of those games that are on that were offered on the PS3. You could download them digitally, right? Not to mention that you can buy PS1 games and play them on the PS3. Mm-hmm. So part of the appeal of the SNES Classic and the NES Classic is, I know that they did, a very elaborate thing with the Virtual Console, which is a system that everybody had, but they added the controller. The Wii didn't even have HDMI. It's still, despite the fact that it was on those systems, it still was not very modern, right? The Wii U was, but I think most of that was on the Wii. So having the NES Classic or the SNES Classic really modernized those things, right? You got save states, et cetera, et cetera. I guess my issue with the PS1 Classic is, like, how much better is it going to be than buying those games on a PlayStation 3? And the PlayStation 3, the DualShock 3 is, it differs very little from the original DualShock. So yes, I mean, I can understand using the Wiimote to play an SNES game. It doesn't give you that feel. But when I play PS1 games on the PS3, as somebody who had a PS1 as a kid, it does not feel that much different to me, And I mean, yes, I didn't have a PS1 early enough to get a non-DualShock controller, but why in God's name would you ever want to use that anyway? So I think that more so than even the SNES and the NES Classics, this is just purely, it's just purely here for, it's just solely nostalgia. And I think what's going to happen is you're just going to get a bunch of people that goes out and buy, they're going to buy them. They're going to start selling them at first. The price is going to get driven way up. It's going to be just like a pair of Yeezys or something. And all the while, nobody's really ever going to play the games. If I'm not mistaken, there was like a Sony exec who said, backwards compatibility is always a very requested feature, but few people use it. So I think the people who wanted to play these games for real were playing them. But now we have this little system that's coming out, and it's just going to be so hyped. It's just a little disgusting to me.
Yeah, the whole thing smacked of like cash in to me, and I think it was just weird. Like, I mean, you picked out a lot of like little issues I wouldn't have thought of so much, but like, I mean, it's just the fact that like it's up for pre-order right now, and they haven't even revealed like the full list of games yet, as far as I know.
Right.
And then it only has like 20 games on it. I don't know. I'm sure at some point they were saying like you'll probably be able to hook it up to online and download some new games in there or something like that. I mean, why wouldn't you be able to? Of course, they'll charge you probably $10 or something, or maybe less for these games. But you could also just go to whatever classic game store is nearby and you get some PS1 games probably for pretty cheap themselves and play them on your PS3 if you have one. I mean, I don't know. Was it really necessary? And then the no DualShock thing as well is just kind of like bizarre. So, I mean, are we not going to see Ape Escape on there? I mean, I guess they've re-released that anyway, haven't they?
I'm pretty sure it's just downloadable. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it's like, that's not even a big deal. But even other games that took advantage of the DualShock, you're just not going to get them on there, apparently. The one thing I will say is I'm happy they put Jumping Flash on there, because that was always like, I remember my cousin had a PS1, and I think it was before I even met Marz Vindicator, that and I used to like go over to their place, and he had a PS1, and like we went to like Blockbuster or something, rented some games, and I was like, oh, let's rent Jumping Flash. And so got Jumping Flash, and I remember that game just being all like surreal and fun and so different, and it felt like a Sega Saturn game almost, which is ironic because I had a Sega Saturn and it wasn't on there, but I don't know. I was happy to see that, and it does look like one. And I think it was like a tech demo, even like it was like a glorified tech demo for the PlayStation 1, actually. But yeah, other than that, I mean, just kind of like it has to be a cash in. That's pretty much all it is. Nostalgia craze.
Exactly. It's just a full on nostalgia thing. And I mean, I think the same arguments could be said about the NES and the SNES, but I think that Nintendo just kind of had a different vibe anyway. I mean, we all know that. I mean, it's impossible to look up collectors and not be, loaded with people whose collection is just dominated by NES and SNES. I think those are hands down the biggest, systems that people collect for. I mean, you'll find a lot of collectors who only do those, and it's not even like strange,
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you met somebody who only did Genesis, it'd be a little different, right? But yeah, so I get where the NES and SNES kind of had this vibe and kind of had this thing where you want this physical thing, but I just don't really have that feel for the PlayStation. I mean, it just like those games are on cartridges. Batteries and cartridges die. Cartridges get old. I mean, like CDs don't get old. Like PlayStation games, in comparison are like, in terms of like what they are, still kind of feel like a modern thing. Like the CD case with the disc in it. It even collecting it is easier, et cetera, et cetera. It's much different than like a cardboard box with a cartridge inside. Big, great cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, I just didn't see the need to release this separate system. And then, okay, so now we can put the system online and download more games. Why didn't we just get that through the PlayStation Store?
Right. Well, the thing that I was going to say is like, Now, I guess there was significant demand for it. I guess, I'm sure they do market research and everything. And, I mean, it is Sony, giant corporation. But, like, also, I feel like Sony has this thing where if there's any, like, hole in the market at all or any place that they can take advantage of, they will take it. Even if it's some small, like, not really requested thing. Like, I mean, like, I guess like PSP and Vita did like reasonably well, and like Japan and stuff. Yeah,
no, the
Vita
PSP
didn't really.
Was good. The Vita was trash.
Yeah, I mean, was Vita even like successful in Japan? Even like, could it even be said that it was successful there?
I wouldn't say successful. Like,
okay, so, but it's just kind of like there was a place in the market where they said maybe Sony, brand loyalty and desire for mobile stuff or portable, I guess they would have been calling it back then, can allow us to capitalize on this, and reach people in this market or whatever. So they take it, even though there's not really that, it's not like an obvious move for them to make like the Vita or something. It wasn't even really an obvious move for them, I feel like, to make the PSP, but they did it, and they were really like the first ones to like, I don't know, like make a big deal out of like redesigning their consoles. I feel like, I remember like PS2 Slim and stuff like that. Even the PS1, the ONE, when they did that thing, I mean, like it had been done before, obviously, really, Model 1 and 2, Sega Genesis and all that stuff. But like, it wasn't like a big deal. Oh, there's the slim version coming out and this version and that version, has, new features or whatever. And like they just take advantage of that kind of stuff, even if it's not really obvious as to why. So I guess this is just, to me, this seems like another thing like that, where it's like, there doesn't seem like there would be a huge amount of demand for a PlayStation 1 classic, because it's not really that old to where, like you're saying, like just like a disc-based system, it's not something that's like inaccessible. Like a lot of people probably still have theirs somewhat, ready to be hooked up or something like that, as opposed to a Sega Genesis or, an NES, certainly, that's probably tucked away in a closet somewhere if you have one at all. So it's just, yeah. And the fact that, I mean, you can still play the PS1 games on PS3. So I don't know. It's like people will buy it. Some people will go. People may be going crazy about this already. There's a lot of people that are supporting this and saying, "Oh, this is amazing. Sign me up." So,
and that's just where I guess this is kind of why I did not want people to see me as a retro gamer, even when I was collecting, because I think one of the points I was trying to bring up was like, I've always been playing these games. So for me, I think, yes, now I think now is maybe the only time where I've actually made like a specific point to try to focus on a single generation, whereas now I'm just trying to, have new experiences. Before I was just, I play whatever I wanted to play. So, like, I think the other reason why it just kind of boggles me that people are interested in this PlayStation Classic is because, there was never a time where you couldn't play PlayStation 1 games.
Right.
Like, I mean, like, because the PS2 and the PS3 were fully backwards compatible with the PS1. On top of them, digitally re-releasing a very large number of PS1 games on the PS3. Like, to the point that it was probably viable for many people to sell their whole collections, because they put like everything on there, all the Final Fantasies, all the Metal Gears, the Tekkens. They may not have done Tekken 3. Or maybe they did. I can't remember. But I mean, they just, everything was there. So, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to play a PlayStation 1 game, you always could. So that's why I feel like a lot of the people who are riding this train are people who, don't play games as much, right? And it was kind of like when they sold their PS1, that was the last they heard of it, and they bought a PS3. A couple years later, played Madden, but they had a son, and now their son is, 8 or whatever, and now they can show him this is, Wild Arms, like. But I mean, like, if you like art, like if you're like a person who plays a lot of video games, and you jump on this train, I hope that shit derails. That's all I'm gonna say. All right. Well, superhero games.
Trash.
Right? What a wonderful transition. No, I think that whole nostalgia trip just really blows my mind. So, I gotta get that out, get that out of my mind. Let's talk about this damn Spider-Man. This game is
trash.
I mean, you know what? I don't even want to make that joke. Like I'm telling you, seriously, like I'm telling you, like I think you are missing out on like just one of the best experiences.
No, I'll probably get it. Like, if it goes on sale or something, you get some Black Friday sale or something, or, some kind of New Year's sale, or, any holiday driven sale that it goes on sale for $40 or less or something. I might get it.
I mean, but why though? Like, why have you already regulated this game down to I'll only pay $40 for it?
Because it just wasn't one that I was like really excited for to begin with. I don't know. It's just like, maybe that's just the thing with superhero games. And the way there's such superhero saturation just in the media in general, to where it's just like, it's another Marvel movie, it's another game, it's another superhero game or whatever. I don't know. It's just like, it definitely looked cool. And I liked, all the trailers and some of the gameplay that I've seen. I don't like the fact that it lets you skip puzzles and QTE if you if you decide to do that. I think that's ridiculous.
Why? I thought you hate those things.
Yeah, but like, not puzzles. I mean, QTE maybe, but not puzzles.
Oh, but it doesn't make you do them though. I mean, it doesn't make you skip it.
No, but what kind of option is that? What kind of option is that? That's the dismal tide.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, I guess I kind of see what you're saying, but I mean, I've always kind of been a fan of choice, at least in things like this. Like they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. I mean, because I guess it's one of those things where you could kind of focus on it being a cinematic type of thing, or you could focus on it being a game. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about it is, though it's open world and has all these cinematics and things, it still really feels like a game to me. Like the combat felt like something I was gonna like get better at. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this is not Dark Souls or anything, but there was still like a bit more there than I was expecting. But I think overall, honestly, one of the reasons that I really like this is, at least for me, it's one of the times, like despite all this PS1 classic nonsense and, because I've always played a lot of those games, right? This is, for me, one of the first times I think I've felt true nostalgia in a long while, because it reminds me a lot of when Spider-Man was actually dope in the 90s. I'm not a huge fan of Toby. Also wasn't a huge fan of The Amazing Guy. And I think Tom Holland is I think he's going to be better, right? But this is a conversation that we won't go too into because we're straight games, no filler. But me and Queasy talked about how some things we noticed about Homecoming is how subservient Spider-Man is to Iron Man, right? But in this, like, it reminds me a lot of the 90s cartoon. Like, he's just this dope hero already, and he knows these people already. Uncle Ben is already dead. Him and MJ have already went out before. He already knows the Shocker. He already knows the Kingpin. And so it also felt really good to just be thrust into this superhero world, because I think that's something that we don't get a lot in the movies, is that we always have to get these initial origin stories, and I get it. Some people are coming to Marvel for the first time to these things, so they may be needed, but it was cool the way that, you just jump right into it and they don't have to give an intro about all these characters. Like, you see this girl with red hair who makes Peter, look at her a certain way, like, it's MJ. You know what I'm saying? And that, like that, I guess to me that really makes that's what really makes this open world kind of bearable for me, because again, I'll even tell you that I think sometimes we do too many, like familiar things in games and stuff like that. But I think I guess the superhero stuff always kind of like set separately because of the way superhero stuff runs. It's always just kind of the same things. So being able to be in this open world, but that's already like fleshed out, right? It just makes it better to me. I guess it's kind of hard to explain. It's like,
no, I can see that.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's like every time you get a new open world game, you have to be.
You have to start off as a scrub with no abilities, who
exactly.
Has to walk around everywhere, and then you get the gun, and then you get the motorcycle.
Exactly.
And, yeah, exactly. I know what you mean.
So you don't know anything, right? Yeah, exactly. There's this whole new thing of lore that you have to learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I was saying. I can remember if I said this here somewhere else, but like, I mix up locations and names from Elder Scrolls, Game of Thrones, and Dragon Age all the time, right? Like it's too much, It's like Winterfell, Spring Set, It's just like, it's just like all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I just love, and there's like little familiar things. Now I think the one only gripe that people have with it that I actually don't even mind is, they say it's like a Ubisoft collecting spree, Ubisoft style, where there's all these little things, scattered throughout the city, like different things, and you have to collect those different things to get different tokens to upgrade your items. But, it's cool, like, because another thing that they brought back is him being a photographer, right? So one of the things you have to do is take pictures of landmarks throughout the city. So it's cool to like kind of take a break and then be able to like, you go and like you snap a picture and you're like, oh snap, that's the Wakandan embassy, or that's Avengers Tower, like, it's cool to have these other little Easter eggs in there. And, and they, like Black Cat is in it. She has the thing that she makes you like collect, but it's like a different style of, photographing where she like hides something. I mean, yeah, I think is really dope. And then, which I haven't even discussed, but which is, I think, maybe the best part of this game is just the free roaming gameplay. Like I've never played, like I don't fast travel in this game because it's that fun, right? Like if I have to go from one end, one end of Manhattan to the other, I'm swinging. Like it's just amazing. And it gets better as you go on. He does tricks and stuff. It's out of control, and it looks ridiculous.
See, I always said Sonic should be that way. Sonic should have had an open world game where the whole fun was running as fast as you could from one side of the map to the other, and that would have been awesome. And so that kind of makes me want to check this game out.
I'm telling you, like, this game will be the perfect setup for Sonic. Yeah, like I mean, like that. I mean, that is just, man, like it's so dope. And I think that there's some things that they could have done to that, to make it. That would have made it maybe more realistic, but like basically they remember that this is a game, right? So it doesn't matter how high you fall to the ground from, it just basically doesn't hurt them. So you can fall from pretty high skyscrapers and he'll just do this roll thing. But if you jump from like the top of the tallest tower, he'll just do this like, superhero style, like, take a knee, arm fist into the ground thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it doesn't slow down the action at all. And this too, like, I think the physics of him swinging are like a little unrealistic with like how well you can steer it, but it basically makes it so that like you never really stop. Like if you got to take a quick turn, you can take the quick turn, and so when you have car chases and like you're chasing the car by like slinging through buildings, like it's. Like all of the like repetitive things that you do in this game that are like in other Ubisoft games and stuff or whatever, like they're all fun in this because of how the game is, and then but they do have some missions that like add this kind of challenge to it, right? So I remember like the one on PS1 where you could swing through buildings, but you just like couldn't touch the ground, like, right? Like you were just up in the buildings, in the clouds. There's like some side missions that are like that. So they'll make this like set area where you can like only swing in, right? And it like adds challenge. Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. And a lot of people are complaining that the story's 30 hours. I'm all here for it. You know, I don't want this open world to get old.
They're complaining that it's 30 hours, that's too long or that's too short?
Too short.
That's what the 30 hours? That's over a day.
Exactly.
Like, you know,
it's saying it's too short.
That's
well,
ridiculous.
I guess it was allegedly a 30-hour platinum. 30-hour platinum. Yeah, right.
Play it again.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
New Game Plus or whatever, you know, I play it again. I'm so tired of that. I mean, right. I just got through replaying Shenmue, and I remember that game seeming like it was, you know, like 1,000 hours long when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, it's only like, you know, maybe 20, you know, but like, I'll just play it again if I feel, you know, like there's so much more satisfaction in like in that feeling than being just overwhelmed by content. I feel like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
so
I mean,
I applaud them for making it 30 hours.
Yeah, same here. Like, you know, I know that I'm, you know, because I'm at like 50% completion. Yeah, like I know it's coming soon. Yeah, I don't need to be lost in the Spider-Man world every single day of my life for the next 4 years. You know what I'm saying? I'm not looking forward to that. And they already have like 3 DLCs planned. Mm-hmm. But this is one of those rare examples of the game though, where I actually feel that my $60 was well spent already. So I have no problem giving them more money for more content. It's not like, oh, I felt like this wasn't enough, so I'm suckered into buying the other content. You know, this, like, if I had known this when I bought it, this is one of those ones where I would have bought the season pass outright, you know, because it's there. So I guess it's funny because the actual topic here, I guess, is technically superhero games. So, you know, what does this mean?
Can we squeeze in some honorable mentions, maybe? So some class. Well, first of all, let me ask you: are Venom and Carnage in this game?
I don't think so. And as far as I've gotten, no. And from what I heard, no. You know, but there's a lot of talk of a sequel.
My favorite superhero game of all, it's either first or second of all time, is Maximum Carnage on the Sega Genesis, and it follows the comic book storyline where you know Venom and Spider-Man team up to take on Carnage. Amazing beat 'em up game in the Streets of Rage style. You know, of course, you play as Spider-Man, or halfway through the game, you can pick Venom as well. And, you know, all the web slinging adds to, you know, and shooting webs and stuff. And Venom's, you know, moves where he turns his arm into an axe and stuff like that. It's awesome. Awesome. Awesome components to add to the beat 'em up formula from the 16-bit era. And also Death and Return of Superman. Because you see, most of my like superhero game experience is from that era. That was like the only time I really played like superhero games. And so, yeah, Death and Return of Superman and Maximum Carnage on Genesis. Got to shout those 2 games out. Great classic beat 'em up games, in my opinion.
Well, it's funny that you say that. So up until these games, my favorite superhero series was just hands down like the Marvel Ultimate Alliance / X-Men Legends series. I've always been a big fan of you know, when it comes to like superhero stuff, I kind of like to be like bombarded to a certain extent because it's like I already know these stories, you know, so I don't mind being thrust into like the middle of the X-Men or in the middle of the Avengers and just like beating people up and stuff. So I love those games. Definitely great like 3D beat 'em ups. You know, I think it was an overall great series, you know, that evolved great from the X-Men into, you know, the full Marvel series. One thing I will say about this, though, is that what I noticed is that, I think another honorable mention is the Batman games. And I think the Batman games have kind of done this to a certain extent, what I'm about to say, but I'm just not a DC fan, so I really didn't know. But one thing I noticed is that a lot of what we got throughout history in superhero games was beat 'em ups, right?
Yeah.
Where it was, you know, it was like, you take this hero and then you use their powers to like beat people up, right? So you never really quite experience the hero aspect of them. And that's one thing I love about Spider-Man, because like sometimes you're just swinging through the city and then there's a car accident, right? And you have to get people out of the car, right? Or people get kidnapped and you have to like, you know, get people like unkidnapped, you know, rescue them. And then some like people will like high five you on the street. People would like take selfies with you. Like
that's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Like it like really makes you feel like damn, like, okay, like you a super like, yeah, like sometimes you're going to be thrust into this fight with this, like, you know, big boss and all of his henchmen. But other times you're just going to, save this grandma from a car.
Yeah.
So
see,
I like that part of it too.
I feel like DC lost track of that with their games and their movies where, their heroes are all like big picture heroes. They're always like fighting, the alien force invading Earth, or they're fighting, some giant cartel or something like that. They're never just like rescuing, the old lady from the burning building, or
Right.
like Man of Steel. If you ever saw that movie, it's like, there's none of that. It's all just like destruction, punching aliens through buildings, and just
Right.
giant space lasers, and so like the heroism, I think Marvel for sure has that on lock.
Is that right? Yeah. And like it's set in New York, like it's right there, all these, very familiar locations. And yeah, it is. It's just way beyond my expectations. I didn't, because I mean, honestly, I wasn't as hyped for it when when they first launched it either. It's because like you said, more Marvel, but Spiderman.
Dang, you talked me into it. I might have to get it.
You gotta get it.
Eventually.
Now I feel it. Get it on sale. I mean, because there will be a complete edition. So
for sure. Yeah, that's the other thing too.
Right. It's worth it this time. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We have arrived at the new segment, The Great Debate. So, the most iconic 6th-gen game. God, I hope we pick different ones. Queasy Crayfish, I will let you go first, and then I will have a swift rebuttal.
Okay. Well, I had to go with Golden Sun on the Game Boy Advance.
No, you're not.
All right, you're right. It's for sure. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time on PlayStation. No, it's Eternal Darkness on GameCube. No, I had to think about it, and there's a few different like viable candidates, but because it's me, I gotta go with Halo. Because I owned an Xbox, original OG Xbox, and that was the first game I had for it. And it was just such a game. I mean, it was like, it just defied, because when a new console comes out, oftentimes there's some issues in the beginning. Like a PS4, like, the first game I had for PS4 was Infamous Second Son, and I just remember being like, man, I wish I could just fast forward like 2 years to where, there's some games I'm actually interested in playing out on this thing, because it was just not fun at all, and I didn't enjoy it. And there was very little reason for me to play my brand new, shiny new console that I was so excited about having. And it was kind of like that with 360 as well. Like Ghost Recon, I think, was like the first game I had for that. Sega Saturn, it was just like, oh, you got some nights, you got some game you can beat in 60 minutes, like, oh, great. So for let's not even mention 64. It came out 2 games. One of them, a perennial classic, but still. So when Xbox came out, and you didn't even know what to expect from the Xbox, you didn't even know what's going to happen. Microsoft's never made a console before, and they come out with Halo, and it immediately became the best game out, the best first-person shooter ever released, arguably, revolutionized multiplayer, fantastic campaign story, so many new characters and places and concepts and things that became, staples of the video game landscape for years afterwards. And probably one of my favorite games of all time, Halo 1. I'm not a big fan of the rest of the series, to be quite honest, but that one remains just a classic to me. And I've gone back and played it many times since then. And even in today's day and age, it still holds up as, amazing first person shooter mechanics, extremely challenging. There's just not enough great things I can say about Halo 1. And so just the way that, the LAN party stuff that people were setting up, multiple Xboxes and TVs and stuff, going over their friends' houses, everybody bring your Xbox or whatever, having these big LAN parties and playing Halo. And like, it was just a phenomenon. And I know, PS2 had a lot of phenomenons to it, of its own right. But for me, Halo is, when I think of that generation, that's one of the first games, if not the first game that comes to mind. And I'm kind of excluding, like Dreamcast and stuff from this just because, I don't know. I mean, it just feels like it's something from like a relic from an older era. Obviously, listeners will know Shenmue is my favorite game of all time, but I'm not going to pretend that was nearly as iconic and as, just a blockbuster as Halo was. So Halo's my pick.
Well, I'm going to have to hit you with the Stephen A. Smith on this one. Blasphemy! Hold on now, Max Kellerman. I'm going to have to...
Max Kellerman's a scrub.
Look, I think the biggest scrub here is Master Chief, okay? I'm going to have to call complete blasphemy here. Now, there is no way on this earth that I'm going to say a game defined that generation without that game being on the PS2, okay? That's like talking about who defined 90s NBA and not talking about Jordan, okay? It's like talking about who defined America and not talking about Michael Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just no way. Hands down, the most iconic game of that generation is Grand Theft Auto 3. And I think that there is no game that could even be brought into the conversation, save Vice City or San Andreas, but you wouldn't have those games if it wasn't for 3. Now, the reason I say this is because, first of all, we have to look at some things. Now, you brought up some things that Halo did that were definitely great. And I definitely don't like using this term very much, but I think Halo was one of those games that was ahead of its time, right? I think it was a game that set the stage for the next generation, but I don't think it really truly defined that generation because, as we all know, Dreamcast 9 million, Xbox 20 million, GameCube 20 million, PlayStation 150. You know what I'm saying? PlayStation 2, right? So whatever was defining that generation was definitely going on the PS2. So it's not to say that Halo didn't do great things. I just think it did great things and set the stage for later. I think the biggest thing that came out of that generation, which we have gone back and forth with, but that was the start of the open world game. And Grand Theft Auto really, really brought that to the forefront. I mean, you had things before it, like Ocarina of Time and things like that were, definitely open. But there was just something different about the way GTA did it, where you could, attack anyone, steal anything, get in anything,
beat up hookers, kill hookers,
and in a post Mortal Kombat age, in a post NWA age, it was hard to do something on TV or in media that was going to shock everybody, right? And Grand Theft Auto still managed to do that. I was banned from playing this game before I even knew what it was, okay? Because I had this famous story about me going to get Final Fantasy, and the guy at GameStop telling my mom about Grand Theft Auto without me even knowing that it was out, right? And of course, I mean, this was a PS2 exclusive that was just so big that, eventually it even had to be brought over to the Xbox. So, yeah, I think when you want to talk about what really defined that generation, I think that the things that GTA did during that generation is just the game that sets it apart from everything else. Are there any rebuttals here?
What I would say is, For sure, it's an influential game, and I think the point about the controversy is a very good point because, like, we hadn't seen that in a while. Where, like, you got the evangelists, lawmakers going out and saying, "Oh, horrible! We need to ban this game. We need to, revise the rating system. People, we need to put pressure on stores to not sell this kind of garbage," and it kind of, we hadn't seen that since, like, Mortal Kombat, or like some of those like ridiculous PS, what was it, like Thrill Kill, or like games like that. So that, I think, is it was definitely the level of controversy, I think, was a big thing with that. And also I remember, like, it did kind of sneak up on people too. Like, like I didn't realize how big of a game that was until I was like sitting in class or something, and I heard people at the next table like, "Yeah, man, then I stole the motorcycle, and then I drove down the street and I hit this guy and I jumped off, and then the cops were still shooting at me, and I ran, through the alleyway, and then I picked up a machine gun," and I'm like, "What are they talking about?"
Right?
Like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
And little did I know it was Grand Theft Auto. But what I would say is, I think, hands down, of those 3 Grand Theft Auto games that were on the PS2, that is the worst one by far. And so for a game that, pales in comparison to its sequels, I have a hard time saying that that's the most iconic game of that generation. I mean, Vice City and San Andreas were just such vast improvements over it. I mean, it may have started the ball rolling, but it's not good. Like, I'm not going to go back and play Grand Theft Auto 3 when I can play San Andreas or Vice City, because, like, the music's not as good. You can't do nearly as much. The cities are much smaller. It's just like, it doesn't look good at all. It's dull. The character's not interesting. It's not even a character. It's just like an avatar, basically. So, I mean, like, it did a lot in starting these concepts and everything. But compared to something like Halo that came out and was ready day one to change the face of the first person shooter, to move them from being like strictly PC games, to being console viable, and to being just an absolute phenomenon, and creating all these story elements and new characters and new things that we hadn't seen before, and thrusting them into the mainstream to where they were recognizable. It's the Master Chief immediately became, a household name after Halo 1. And that whole story and the Covenant and all the different aliens and everything, even like Captain Keyes and, I forget, what is it, Sergeant Johnson or whatever. Like, all these characters became like popular characters that just didn't even exist, just a few months before it came out. And GTA 3 didn't have that. It just had strictly conceptually. It definitely, pushed the envelope. But beyond that, I mean, I think I would much rather have argued for San Andreas or Vice City than for GTA 3. Especially because, none of those games had multiplayer.
Well, and that is the thing. I guess my main issue with the argument that you make is that I feel like all of the things that you bring up are huge characteristics of the next generation, right? And not that generation. So I actually feel like Halo 1 is, I would put that as a more iconic 7th generation game than I would as a 6th generation game, because, Halo did its thing on the Xbox. And it created its own style of, in a sense, its own kind of own style of gameplay, its own way. There was nothing on PS2 that was making people really have LAN parties, having people, set them up like that, that sort of multiplayer, feel is definitely true. You can never take that away. But, it did not set the tone of that generation. And I guess that's my only qualm with it. So overall, Queasy Crayfish thinks he takes Halo 1 as the most defining 6th-gen game, while me, Marz Vindicator, I say GTA 3.
You know what? Can I throw in a dark horse here?
Oh, yes.
Resident Evil 4.
Definitely not.
No?
Definitely not.
I mean, it's been ported to like everything. It's considered the best Resident Evil. I mean,
yeah. So has Mean Bean Machine. The best Resident Evil. But I don't think Resident Evil has ever been the most iconic game of a generation. So
it's a big major franchise, though.
Oh, it's definitely a big major franchise. But most iconic. There's a large number of games that are going to beat RE1 on the PS1 through 64. And I think that Halo is definitely much more genre defining than Resident Evil 4.
I just think that was one of those games that, I mean, because GameCube was other than the Dreamcast was like last place, and that was like one reason to go get a GameCube. Resident Evil 4, that and Melee. So they definitely had something with that. Yeah,
and all 25 million people who had GameCubes enjoyed that game, while the 150 million of us were playing Grand Theft Auto. Let the numbers speak for themselves. But either way, I think we both had some very good points here, some very good games, and we'd be interested to hear what you think is the most iconic game of the 6th generation.
Yes.
Finally, here though, I want to talk about the Tokyo Game Show, right? So Tokyo Game Show is going on now in Chiba Prefecture, not Tokyo.
In San Francisco.
Pretty much. Tokyo Game Show is definitely dope. It definitely does not get the sort of buzz that E3 gets, as you can see, we didn't, block off a whole, segment, a whole episode for TGS like we did for E3. Part of that is due to time. You know what I'm saying? I don't think neither of us wants to be recording at, odd times at night, because of the large time difference, between here and there. But there are some things that I do like about the Tokyo Game Show. Now, when it comes to, first I'll say we'll talk about some of the games here. So I can honestly say that there isn't too much of anything that I'm super, super hyped about for TGS that I don't already know a lot of information about, or that I didn't also mention at E3, right? Like Sekiro, or obviously I want Soul Calibur, but I don't even really consider that a TGS game at this point. It's coming out next month.
Right.
There were some cool things that got announced around E3. For me, most specifically, was probably the re-release of Katamari Damacy. Again, I think something that, this is one of those things where, I think we have a lot of re-releases, but, we haven't seen this game in now over 10 years. So I'll take that. We haven't even seen a new Katamari game in, I feel like, at least 5. So, I'll definitely take that. But yeah, I mean, I can honestly say that this is a TGS where I'm kind of not super hyped for anything. And just let it be known, the Marz Vindicator style of hyping games is pretty much announcements and buying the game, right? I don't really get too much into the in-between. If it's something big, then I will. But yeah, pretty much like if I know it exists, and if I can buy it, that's when I'm the most excited. So unless the trailer is, the first MGS2 trailer or something, I'm usually not going to jump out of my chair for it.
See, I love the chase. I love watching, new trailers that are slightly different, but mostly the same from the old ones. So I am excited to see a new ridiculous Kojima style trailer for Death Stranding or something, which tells us nothing new. And I am excited to see possibly some new Sekiro gameplay. Maybe like Neo 2 or something like that will show up. We'll get a little surprise or something like that. or Shenmue 3, we can always hope, that there'll be some kind of, they'll show like one screenshot or something of some new character that looks completely unfinished. The Quiet Man. I see that this game is listed here on Square Enix. They're showing The Quiet Man supposedly at TGS this year, and that was the one about like the deaf. I don't even know what he was. He was like a deaf action hero, basically. And he's like, I just remember that trailer at E3 and being like, what is this game? Like, this looks interesting and new. So I'm excited to see if there's some new stuff about that. I don't know. Other than that, though, Digimon Survive, maybe.
Yeah, I like Digimon.
Digimon Survive. No, that I'm actually kind of like low key, like interested in that game. It's like a extremely dark take on the Digimon universe.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I might check that out.
Did you ever watch Digimon?
A little bit, yeah. I watched like the first few seasons, like here and there. I watched some episodes. American seasons. I don't know really, how that the timeline of that show went in Japan or anything, but I just thought it had like a cool story.
Oh no, I definitely did.
But I didn't really get in, I was all like, oh, Pokemon's better or whatever, but yeah. And maybe we'll see some Anthem, see some Anthem gameplay, get hype for that. Team Sonic Racing.
Oh God, yeah, Team Sonic. See, yeah, well, one game that I'm not really personally excited for, but honestly, one of the things that like popped up that just like made me kind of think about something was Days Gone. And the only reason I say that is because like every time a Sony exclusive comes out, I'm like, okay, we got this new exclusive, it's 1 point on the Xbox, let's see what happens next. And like, I always kind of forget that Sony just has this loaded ass cannon that they just keep firing, and there's just always shit, right? I mean, like, because when God of War came out, I kind of forgot about Spider-Man, right? And then when Spider-Man dropped, I kind of forgot about Days Gone, but like they still have Days Gone, like they are always showing up with this exclusive game that, me personally, I'm not really that hyped for Days Gone, but that feel, that that style, a lot of people like that, so it's like, man, like they don't stop. And I mean, and yeah, we're not even talking about Ghost of Tsushima,
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, I had forgotten about that.
Like they have this load of, and it does not stop. Last of Us 2, that's still coming. And these aren't even just, these aren't one-off exclusive. These are first party games.
Mm-hmm.
So
PS4, when it's all said and done, is going to have a nice library, and I feel like it's one that we're going to look back at in 10 years or so and be like, it was actually pretty dope.
Oh yeah, and single player actually isn't dead because all these games,
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, like people have already forgotten, like Bloodborne and stuff like that's been out. Like, it's been out. Horizon's been out.
They're like, there's even just like there's even like a lot of small things that aren't necessarily like maybe like the best games, but just have like their own pool. Like like Gundam games come out. There's like Gundam Versus.
Yeah, I just Yakuza. I mean,
Yakuza. Even like Gravity Rush 2. Like that was a huge portable game they brought over. Like there's just like it's so deep. It's so deep. The exclusive library is just so deep. And allegedly, PUBG is coming to PS4 now.
Oh, damn. So, good nights, Xbox.
Literally, like, man,
Like, that was like their whole big acquisition, too. Like,
exactly.
Oh, we got PUBG on Xbox.
And that's an alleged thing. But, it seems to be.
I can see it.
That's something that's coming.
You got to go where the money is,
Oh, and I mean, and this news is on The Verge and CNET and GameSpot. So it's not to say that it's not fake news, but this is like definitely a good point to make it not look like fake news. So, but yeah. So, anyways, though, Tokyo Game Show. I went there before, twice actually. And I guess kind of the reason I just wanted to talk about it is because of how like different like hyping a game show was from home versus like actually going to one, right? Like it was actually like quite absurd. When one of the cool things about TGS is that like it's just open to the public. So like you don't get to go during when all the announcements are made. All that's already said and done. But there's like these 2 public days where they let everybody come in, and they have a lot of stuff on display. And it's in this place called Makuhari Messe. It's like this big, huge like center, right? And there's 3 big rooms, right? And like in the first room, usually you have like these huge, like large displays set up of usually maybe like probably like the, well, I wouldn't necessarily say the biggest thing, but like there will be like a very big thing going on right there. Like when you first walk in. And then in the second room, you kind of get the same thing. There may be another like big display. But there's going to be like a lot of other like kind of smaller booths in there. I remember that's where like, I feel like Rockstar was set up in there. Capcom was set up in there, and they have these like crazy statues. But the biggest displays, like I remember at least the first year, the biggest display in the first room was, I can't even remember. It might've been PlayStation. And then I think in the next room, it was Xbox. And then the year after that, it was swapped because I went 13 and 14. And then like in the last room, which like you probably would just like never see, but there's like another room where they're like selling a bunch of stuff. And they had like a whole, there's like a whole like food court set up with all this like Japanese street food and stuff. So, you could like eat and stuff. And yeah, like it was just like, you get up early, you take the train out there because it's not very close to the center of Tokyo, right? So it's not a bad train ride by any means, but it's a little bit of a train ride. You get out there, and like you're just kind of out there for like the day. So like, like I remember just like being exhausted, like tired of walking around, seeing too much stuff, long ass game lines. I remember like I have like a picture of one of my homeboys like knocked out, like he's like knocked out sleeping at the Tokyo Game Show. Cause like there's like these little areas in between like the big rooms where it's like outside, and you'll just see people out there just like sitting down, like just like exhausted and tired, from playing too much stuff. It's just like a really, cool experience. Just to like see all that stuff. And then, and it really, I mean, there's a lot of events that go on at that center. It's like one of the bigger centers. Like a lot of times if you hear about something is happening in Tokyo, that's where it'll be. Even though it's not actually in Tokyo. So like that city is kind of like set up for that. So as you're walking to TGS from the train station, which if I remember is probably like maybe a good 10-minute or so walk, like there's all these displays set up and people are like selling all this stuff, and there'll be like, characters walking around.
Cosplay.
There's a whole lot of cosplay. I remember this girl like turned us down for a picture. It like really like pissed us off. Yeah, like she had like this whole costume on. We're like, we'll take a picture with you. And she's like, oh, choto, no. Like, what the fuck?
That's crazy. That's the whole point of cosplay.
Exactly, right?
Because my girlfriend and I went to Indiana Comic-Con this year, and we went as Rey and Kylo Ren. And then we were amazed because we had never really done that before, and we were like amazed how many like people just come up to you, hey, can I take a picture? You take your picture, and it was always just like, oh sure, right. It was like fun. So like, why would you be turning people down unless they're like really creepy or something? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me get your picture.
Right, man. I don't know. It could have been. Not like in a racist way. It could have just been because we were like foreigners. It's like I'm
foreign sailers. Yeah, I know.
Right. Yeah. Right. And you just get like 4 white and 4 black guys, just like, let us take a picture of you, anime girl.
I'm gonna put it on my wall.
Right. But yeah, it was just like it was crazy. I guess one of the bigger experiences I had that like just like it always reminds me. Because I mean, yeah, like if you go in like a lot of game stores in Japan, the way that they deal with Xbox is very reminiscent of how the Sega Saturn was dealt with in that generation, right? Like you can sometimes find stores that just don't have it, right? Like it'll be PlayStation and Nintendo, and if they do have it, it's very small. It's like this niche thing. But like, so I went in 2013. That was the first time I went. So this really pissed me off because, my whole life I wanted to go to Japan. One of the main things I want to do is buy a PlayStation there for everybody in America, and whoop-de-dee, it comes out in America before it comes out there. Right. So the PS4 may have, I don't think it was already out, but it was like just about to come out. Yeah. I think it was like 2 months later, it was going to come out in America. and it wasn't going to hit Japan until that February. And then the Xbox, wasn't even going to hit Japan until like a whole year later, I think. But I remember we were all like, because for this, we got there like early, like before it even opened up, and so I remember like there was all these people there, and like the lines, it was like this long line of people, and they opened up the doors, and like the Xbox had their big display in the first room, right? PlayStation was like all the way in like in the second room, and like they opened the door, and by the time I made it into the door, every line for like to try the PS4 was like just done for like the whole day. It was like it's at capacity. It's spoken like every single line, right? So keep in mind that like those lines filled up like that, right? Like they filled up like that fast, and that was like in the second big ass room, right? So I walked all the way there. So I'm like, damn, I can't play PS4. I walk all the way back to like the first room, and I'm able to play Forza on Xbox One immediately. Like I was just able to like walk up and just play it, right? So like it just really set the stage for how PS4 and Xbox are dealt with in Japan. So the first game I played this generation was Forza something. I got to hold the Xbox One controller. It felt kind of cool.
It's a great game though. It's a great game.
I mean, it is a great game. I really wanted to play PS4. Whining and crying. And then the next year I went, the biggest and best thing, which is kind of weird actually, was it was like at the Xbox booth, but it was probably one of Kojima's last public Konami appearances. But I walk in the first room, I look to the right, and Kojima's like on stage, talking, and I had like a Michael Jackson faint moment. They had to come pour water on me and stuff, and pull me out of the mess hall and get me doctored up and everything. But yeah, I got to see Kojima. That was dope, and it was like, you remember that Metal Gear Solid 4 trailer with like, like he was like on like the white horse, like he gets off the horse and he like looks at everything.
I think so.
Right, yeah, and then he's like,
"Oh yes, I do."
And he like, like slides off on the side of the horse to get past the people, which I feel like I never did the whole time I was playing that game. But yeah, I just, that was just a wild experience, So I do have a picture of Kojima. I will post that Throwback
Thursday. That up on the Insta.
Oh yeah, I still have the programs and everything, so I'll put those up. So yeah, I mean, TGS is definitely a dope show. I think I may just be saying this because I'm an American. It does not fill the void for E3. There's just something different about E3. There's so much hype. As I was saying to Queasy Crayfish before this, Nintendo actually doesn't even participate in TGS, which I think a lot of people don't notice. Because they did like a Nintendo Direct, like close to this time, but they don't even actually participate. So like, but like Xbox is there set up, every year.
Right.
So that's kind of,
well, that was a big thing when Nintendo stopped doing those stage shows at E3 as well. I mean,
right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
so
they just play by their own rules forever.
Basically, as they should. I always wondered if they just didn't, because like Nintendo is not headquartered in Tokyo, like almost every other, I feel like, big company is. So I wonder if they just don't do it because of that. But I mean, like, neither is Microsoft.
Non-Tokyo bias.
Right, yeah, exactly. We're not going there, Let's have the Kyoto game show,
Well, Microsoft is just like the efforts to which they went to like pander to Japan with the 360 and stuff, and now they're just like, whatever. Right. But like, it was just like, it was comical and sad. I felt like in the 360 era.
No, it definitely was.
We're gonna get all these Japanese RPGs, and we're gonna go out of our way to do this, and we're gonna put this out in Japan first. And they're just like, yes, thank you, no, thank you.
Oh, great, Yeah, that was really like I had a Japanese 360 account, and there was like this. They would do like this show on there. It's kind of like that, like GameSpot TV stuff with like these two Japanese people. And I was thinking, like, I'm probably the only person watching this. Like, somebody's watching this, like me and them, The only people that even know that this exists. Like they tried very hard. It was a valiant effort, but
but you just can't compete.
Exactly. But you can play Xbox One at TGS
easily.
And Rocksmith. Nobody was playing that shit either.
Rocksmith? What is that?
It's basically like Guitar Hero, but use a real guitar.
Oh.
You know, it's like not very beginner friendly, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, it was, TGS, it was definitely wild. I think, I remember like Bethesda had a big setup. I think it was because they were doing the Evil Within.
Okay.
Psycho Break there.
Uh-huh.
Which I didn't know I didn't know they were the same game for a very long time.
Yeah, when that was designed by I forget what his name is. But one of the masterminds behind the original Resident Evil games. So that was definitely a good fit for Tokyo Game Show.
What that's funny because I don't know why, but I feel like that game was like way more hyped here than it was there. Because I like when that I don't even like I remember seeing stuff for that game, but it just kind of I don't know, like it just.
I feel like maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like Resident Evil is just generally better received and a more popular franchise perhaps here than it is in Japan. We had all those Resident Evil movies,
right.
Like that's
those come out there though too.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, but I mean, like they're definitely not like
made
Japanese, centric films or anything like that. Yeah, like they're definitely. Well, I mean, I guess they do have kind of I don't know. They do have kind of like a anime sense of like extravagance and crazy action and stuff like that, but
right.
Also I feel like they're very, very Hollywood, very like B movie Hollywood kind of productions.
That is true. Yeah, I actually did not even realize that those games were so Japanese. Like they're fully Japanese developed.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. So that is that's my experience with Tokyo Game Show. I think if it's like $12 to go. Like the tickets are cheap. They're cheap as hell. You can get them. I mean, it's totally open to the public. So yeah, if you ever, it's $12 to go if you're in Tokyo, So really, it's like $1,212,
right?
Well, plus the hotel, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah,
I'm just gonna go for the day.
Right. Good luck with that. I feel like you would die if you did that, just jet lag alone. But yeah, it's definitely something worth doing. If you can do that, not to mention there's a whole like district of Tokyo that's dedicated to like video games, tech, and anime. So it doesn't take place there, but I'm sure there's like stuff that goes on there around it. So definitely check out TGS. It's a great event. Hopefully one day we'll be able to tell you about the time we went to E3. But I doubt it. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Status Quo episode 21. As we said, we talked a little bit about TGS, but we're definitely going to talk a lot more in depth about TGS next week. So definitely check us out next week. Queasy Crayfish will be hosting. Those are always the better episodes. So. All right.
Disagree, but
something wrong with patting each other on the back. So, that has been Status Quo. Marz Vindicator, and I'm out of here.
I'm Queasy Crayfish, but as always, I'm just going to stay right here.
Man.
Yeah, hit me up.
Oh, yeah. I'll leave you some food.
Okay, I'll need that.
Enjoy yourself.